Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Tomorrow, I've got some subscriber interviews lined up. I've got 2 that I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So, to kind of waste a little bit of time, or, well, not waste time, but to fill that time gap, I've got some terrifying encounters that I'd really like to share with you tonight. Before we get into those encounters, a couple of links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also just finished narrating and producing my first audiobook written by Tom Lyons called Dogman, Frightening Encounters. The link to that will be in the description below as well. It's available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that, they don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, step over there and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've definitely taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's encounters. Shall we? Today's first encounter, Jackson County, Texas. Well, to begin, my uncle, who lives across the street from my parents, heard his dogs barking, so he got a flashlight and went out to his pasture to check it out. He shined his flashlight to an old vehicle he has in the pasture and saw eyes. He just stood there trying to figure out what it was. Then he saw it turn and run. He said he beat the dogs back to the house. It scared him so bad. Well, he called my parents, telling them about it. They laughed at him and asked him if he had been drinking. Of course, he said no. It ran towards you all. Well, my dad went outside to see if he could see anything, and he didn't find anything. We thought he was joking, till about a week later my mom went outside to throw something into the trash. She flipped on the porch light and had her back to the back pasture, till she got a funny feeling something was wrong. She felt something staring at her. She turned around, and all of a sudden my mom ran into the house shaking and crying. "That SOB is out there." She panicked. I said, "Mom, what is it?" She said he wasn't lying. There is a thing out there. My dad ran to the porch to see what it was, but by the time he had gotten out there, it had already ran off. I asked my mom what it looked like after I finally calmed her down. She said it was about 7.5 to 8 feet tall, kind of standing there, slumped over, with its arms dangling, staring at her. She said the lights reflected off it, and the eyes were glowing red from the porch light's reflection. It looked like it had been bedding down in an old hog pen my parents have. It is in the woods not far from the creek. My mom saw it twice. She never told anybody about this because we didn't want people to think we were crazy or stupid. Today's second encounter, Wood County, Texas. About 8 or 10 years ago, my best friend and I were running around in the woods down some trails about 1/8 of a mile from behind my house. It was getting dark, so we started to jog home. All of a sudden, I started hearing this crunching of small rocks, not like gravel, under our feet. Then I heard this loud crash, and I reached behind me, grabbed her shirt by her chest, stopping her, asking her if she heard anything because it sounded really close. She said no, and I pointed in the direction I thought it came from and said, "It came from over there." In which case, she pointed a little to the right and said, "No, it's right there." I then saw a large beast covered in dark brownish fur stand up from being on all fours to standing on 2 legs, sidestep twice to hide behind a tree and peek out from behind it. I noticed that it really didn't have ears like a bear does, and I really didn't notice the smell. It made no noise other than the crash it had caused earlier. Not sure if it had jumped out of the tree, fell down, or was just knocking over trees. I didn't notice any moving bushes or trees. There was a large bush between us, so I really only saw about its waist up. Never noticed any hands or feet. I didn't get a good look at its face. The sun was setting, and it was getting rather dark in the thick woods. We slowly sidestepped around the little bend where the animal was. It was about 20 to 30 feet from us. Once past it, we took off running as fast as we could, ran all the way home. We heard it running beside us, a little back off into the woods, staying clear of the trail we were on, but it kept pace with us. It seemed to stay behind us, just off to the right. It ran beside us for at least 100 yards or so before we no longer heard any commotion. We've not been back out into those woods since, especially by ourselves and not without being full sunlight outside. The creature seemed to be 6 to 7 feet tall. Today's third encounter, LaFour, Oklahoma. 3 of us were scouting for tracks in McCurtain and LaFour County. We happened to meet a retired Forest Service supervisor who directed us to an area that he thought might be worth checking out for Sasquatch activity. He owned some cabins on the little river and said he had experienced Sasquatch encounters out on his property. The road to the remote area was extremely rough. For 2 days, we neither saw nor heard anyone else. On Sunday, the driver stopped at the spot where the jeep trail skirted what had been a muddy stretch, now dried. We had made many similar stops that weekend to look for tracks in places not covered by rocks and thick vegetation. I noticed a concentration of dead leaves in the midst of the smooth, dry mud. I moved the leaves to reveal a depression that the leaves had filled. It was a 16-inch track. One of the other guys, an experienced local hunter, announced the discovery of another track, then another. 4 tracks were found, deeply impressed in the mud, parallel to the jeep trail. It had not rained for months, so these tracks could have been made the previous May or June. Alongside the huge tracks was a series of black bear tracks, an adult and a cub. There was no mistaking that the huge tracks we were looking at were not bear tracks. In a spot where the abandoned stretch of jeep trail had raised a center, a left foot registered what looked like a series of marks from a flat nail of a big toe. The tracks were about 7 inches wide across the ball, with the heel about 4 inches wide. Depth varied, but they were about 1.5 inches deep. The average heel-to-heel distance was about 57 inches from the first 2 steps. The last step, the one where the big toe left the nail mark, was about 80 inches, leading us to speculate that the animal may have slightly stumbled when its foot hit the center of the road. It appeared that the track marker had been walking alongside the road, not in it. Rather than walk around the abandoned short muddy curve, it looked like the animal just kept going straight coursed. We took pictures, but we were later informed none of the pictures turned out. Today's fourth encounter. Muskogee County, Oklahoma. A hairy bipedal creature carrying off a calf or a dead deer carcass over its left shoulder crossed the road from east to west, approximately 150 yards in front of my pickup during a brief rainstorm. A part-time rig hand with me in the truck also witnessed the creature. The following day, we found several partial footprints along the creek bank on the west side of the road. We lost the tracks after 10-15 yards in the dense undergrowth. About 7 to 8 feet tall, thin, lanky, weighing approximately 400 pounds. It was covered in what appeared to be dark brown or black hair. It was carrying a deer or a calf carcass over its left shoulder with an obstructed clear view of its face. I had a sighting about 30 years ago in Nebraska. This creature was much thinner, not as robust as the creature I encountered in Nebraska. The stride was distinctly non-human. Today's fifth encounter. I was hiking along the Au Sable River in Michigan during the summer of '99. This is in the counties of Oscoda, Alcalana, and Lasco. I remember one of my most scariest encounters with the wilderness. While walking east along the river around 1 hour prior to dusk, I heard what to my ears to be a wolf howl. I've seen wolf prints and seen wolves at my home in Long Lake, Michigan, but never heard a howl so deep and almost human-like in my life. I got spooked and set up camp and made a fire, larger than most do, to my fear. At dusk, I heard the howling getting closer. Directly across the river, I had heard stories of a wolf man from native powwows and in my family folklore covering the whole United States, but I've never personally seen what I saw that night or the next day. That night, after eating some beef barley stew from my canned good collection, I lied down by the fire with my huge folding knife closely gripped by my chest. I was watching and listening to the surrounding woodline for about 30 minutes. When the average night noise stopped, to this meant two things. Either something had spooked the local animals, and that it made me very uneasy. I looked out away from the fire and shot the fire away from my eyes using my unarmed hand. I looked across the river, which was only about 100 meters across from my fire. That's when I saw the most unnerving sight ever. On the sand was a creature standing maybe larger than the average sow black bear, with black fur. Large, long skull and yellow, reflective eyes like a wolf. I closed my eyes and hoped I was imagining things. And then it gave out the howl again. I opened my eyes and it ran down the bank and disappeared into the night. As it ran, it didn't run on all fours like a bear nor a wolf. Unlike the local Bigfoot, it wasn't fully upright like a human or primate. I was so scared that I slept the rest of the night in a damn tree about 20 feet off the ground. It took me 3 hours and praying to ease my fear so I could finally fall asleep. Today's sixth encounter. This occurred in September 2016 while visiting West Grand Lake, Maine. I'd been playing with the dogs outside around dusk. The sun was just below the tree line, but there was still plenty of light to see by, and went to use the bathroom. My husband had been fiddling with his guitar, but wandered into the bathroom looking like he wanted to say something. He was pale and sweaty, kind of staring into space. So I was naturally concerned. He wouldn't tell me what was wrong at first, but I finally got it out of him that he had just seen a huge black wolf walk by the window. I told him it must have been a bear, knowing that there wasn't supposed to be wolves around here, and the window was too high for any canine on 4 legs to walk in front of. He said no, but whatever it was, I didn't want the dogs messing with it, so I ran back outside. They were still wrestling in the side yard, oblivious, so it was easy to get them back in. And then I had a look around. I didn't see any animal or any sign, but noted the window was even higher than I thought. When I went back in, my husband described what he had seen as a black bipedal wolf. He said the snout and ears were wolf-like, but that it had yellow eyes that reminded him more of a cat. I measured the window, and the bottom of it is 6 feet off the ground. So for anything's head and torso to pass by it, from where he was standing, the animal would have had to been more like 7 feet tall. One of our dogs is tall enough if he stood on his hind legs, but we've never seen him do that on his own. And he's blue-gray with floppy ears and brown eyes. There aren't any huge black circus dogs on my road that I know of. My husband was very skeptical of anything not accepting by the scientific community, but still insists that it was not a black bear he saw. He concluded that he must have hallucinated the whole thing. 2 weeks later, around the same time of day, my husband saw the same animal. This time he was close to the window, and the animal was further away, running out through a small stand of red pine. He still doesn't believe it's real, even after seeing it twice. And then, not sure if this is related, about a week after, I was gardening, and my husband comes back out calling for me, really shook up again. He said he was sitting in his computer chair and thought I was standing over his shoulder. He said when he looked up, it was a black form, like a shadow person. He jumped and it was gone, but it scared the crap out of him. He wanted me to come inside and keep an eye on him because he was afraid it meant he was going to have a stroke or something. Well, alright guys, there you have it. A couple of encounters to get you through until tomorrow, when I have two really interesting interviews that I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I'm going to put them out both tomorrow or save one. I will decide that tomorrow, because if I do put them both out, then I'll probably take Sunday off. But if I don't, I'll just put that one out on Saturday and one out on Sunday. I'm not sure. Or who knows when it comes to me sometimes. I just want to thank everybody, and I will let everybody know when the second volume of Dogman Frightening Encounters is out on the market. Also, number 3 is coming along very nicely. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that one as well. Thanks for all the support, guys, and stay safe out there.